Our modern concept of disease, what doctors call the disease model, is only about 100 years old. It emerged from germ theory, from the work of early microbiologists such as Louis Pasteur and Robert Koch. The disease model says that you've got an organ, it gets a defect, and as a result you see symptoms. It doesn't matter what the organ is, bone, liver, kidney, whatever. The defect is a physical cellular defect. Cells die, cancer develops, an infection perhaps, and if a person has that defect in that organ, they will show certain signs and symptoms. That might not look like much, but that is actually everything that doctors do. And what is this model? It's a causal model. I'll show you how it works. Let's say you go skiing. You ski too fast and hit a tree. You might get a defect, a fracture, in an organ, your femur. If so, you will show the symptoms of a broken leg. The disease model tells the doctor where to go. After the symptoms, no, doctors do not chase symptoms. They fix the defect, and with time and healing, the symptoms go away. That's an illness that doctors can cure. Let's look at one that they can only treat. This is diabetes. This time the organ is the pancreas. The defect is the death of cells that produce insulin, and every one of the symptoms of diabetes can be traced back to that defect in that organ. Before doctors had the disease model, they tried to chase down and fix each individual symptom, and it didn't work. Most diabetics died in childhood. But once doctors started using the disease model, it told them exactly what to do. You simply replace the insulin, and if you do it correctly, the symptoms of diabetes disappear. The disease model rescued medicine from all those bad explanations of disease: morals, personality, race, gender. And it was so powerful a model at revealing the true cause of illness that it changed the world. The disease model doubled the human lifespan in only 100 years. And 100 years ago, doctors knew that. They knew that this new, modern, scientific definition of disease would make the new, modern, scientific profession of medicine powerful too. But they also realized that they had to figure out, right away, what was a disease and what wasn't. Who would be a patient, and who would medicine wash its hands of? It was easy to see how broken legs and diabetes fit the disease model. So doctors ruled that these were diseases, and the people who had them were patients. But how did addiction fit the disease model? What was the organ? Was it the brain? Was it the liver? What was the nature of the defect? 100 years ago, no one knew these things. And the symptoms of addiction, well, they just looked like badness. When doctors could not readily fit addiction to the disease model, they declared that it was no longer a disease, and that addicts were no longer patients. That didn't mean that addiction just disappeared. It meant that another group in our society had to handle addiction. And that group is the criminal justice system. As a result of that decision made by doctors almost 100 years ago, today in the United States we have 2.3 million people in prison. And most of those people are there for one thing: drugs, or alcohol, or the things that people do on drugs and alcohol. When you get into numbers like 2.3 million people, this isn't a criminal justice problem anymore. This is a public health catastrophe. If we knew the organ involved in addiction, if we understood the defect, and if that defect in that organ explained addictive behaviors, unpleasant as they are, then addiction would fit the disease model, and all of this would end. For nearly 100 years, medicine has been unable to do that, and the problem of addiction has fallen largely to the law. Until today. In the last 20 years, there has been an explosion of understanding about the brain and addiction. Today, neuroscientists do know the parts of the brain involved in addiction. They know the nature of the defect, and that defect in that organ shows that the behaviors of addicts are in fact symptoms of a disease.
Treat the disease, not the symptoms of the disease. Unmanageability is just another symptom of the disease. Many times, some can focus on treating the symptoms of the disease and not change the thinking, leading to relapse. People come to treatment with the mindset that if they get the job back, the relationship back, get their finances fixed, and their lives become more manageable, then they are treating the disease. They may forget how truly powerless they were over substances. Many can, hyper-focus on repairing the damage they've done in their life, but do very little to change the thinking that caused the problems in the first place. Recovery is so much more than just abstinence or sobriety. Recovery indicates sobriety plus change. A change in thinking, a change in behaviors, and a change in how we interact with others, and a change in how we think about ourselves. When we treat the symptoms of the disease and not the disease, it puts us on a slippery slope to not make the necessary changes and continue to conflict with our core values. When someone struggles with substance abuse, it's often just the visible symptoms of a deeper underlying problem. Simply treating the symptoms, like getting a job back or repairing relationships, is not enough. The real issue is the disordered thinking and behaviors that led to the substance abuse in the first place. Recovery isn't just about stopping substance use. True recovery requires a complete change in how we think, behave, interact with others, and view ourselves. Just getting sober or abstinent doesn't fix the root causes that made us powerless over substances before. If we only focus on fixing the outward damage caused by our substance abuse, without changing our unmanaged thinking, we're likely to relapse. It's like trying to fix a broken mind with that same broken mind. It doesn't work. That's why guidance from others who have been through it, like mentors or sponsors, is so crucial. They can help us develop new, healthy ways of thinking and living that treat the core disease of addiction, not just the symptoms. Recovery means so much more than just not using. It's an entire life transformation.